Howdy, folks, and welcome to the SoundAppraiser TuneScore podcast, where we review songs, give them scores, and talk about what we'd change, if anything. My name's Cary Nightingale. With me, as always, is Kevin Niebrick. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
I finally got my go bag ready so that if I have to leave for any reason, I have an emergency plan, and I'm ready to go.
That's fantastic to hear. So, what we've got for the show tonight is three ballads that hit number one in the charts, one from the 90s, one from the 2000s, and roughly, and one from the 2010s. So, we're going to take a look at these number one hit ballads from the last 30 or so years, see how they stack up against each other and other songs that we've talked about, and we'll take it from there. So we're going to start with Everything I Do It For You by Bryan Adams. This one hit number one in, I think, 91 or 92. Kev, we usually talk about the composition first, so tell the folks what you thought of the composition on this one.
So for this one, I gave it pretty much middle of the road, right across the board, for melody, lyrics, rhythm, harmony. I thought the melody is simplistic, but it's pretty, and I can hear there's some harmony in the vocals and the piano accompaniment together. It's nice. It's a very common chord progression. The lyrics are emotive but vague. I mean, the narrator could be literally anyone. Very simple rhyme schemes. The hook, "Everything I do it for you," has two rhymes in that one line, which I think is nice to break up the repetition, and it adds a little bit of cadence because before that he's rhymed you and a couple other words. So there's a three word rhyme there. So that third time he adds in an extra syllable there, an extra rhyme in that same line, and it kind of adds to the cadence. And it has multiple different rhyme schemes throughout. They're all very simple. All the rhymes themselves are very simple, but by breaking up those rhyme schemes and doing an ABAB and then doing an AAA rhyme scheme, going back and forth, doing all kinds of stuff, it's kind of all over the place. But there's definitely a structure there. It's just kind of nice that it breaks it up a little bit. There's some simple rhymes in there. Trying for, dying for. Most of the rhymes are monosyllabic. True, do, you. So it's very simple. The message of the song, I think, is you could say it's romantic. You could also say it's kind of insane. Uh, I think over time, uh, this message is the more I listen to it, the more I feel it's insincere and commercial.
Okay.
How do you feel about it? Where does it hit you?
So I agree with you for the most part as far as middle of the road, except where I don't. So I thought this had a really strong melody. So not quite a perfect score on the melody, but close enough. The lyrics, so I agree with you in the fact that the rhymes are monosyllabic and things like that. In fact, so aside from one of the words in the title, everything, there's only one other word that features more than two syllables, and that was sacrifice. But the theme of living one's life completely and utterly in service to another person is, I would say, pretty disgusting, crazy, disgusting, however you want to look at it. I would die for you, I would lie for you, all of that stuff. I thought that you would give a little more credit to the rhythm in this because of some of the tempo. I don't know if the tempo is necessarily changing, but there are a lot of dynamic shifts in how the rhythm accompanies the singer and the other instruments. But I thought the harmony fit well, and just a little bit of a bonus on the harmony. There was a parallel minor chord used. I think he was on an F major, and then he went to an F minor chord under Die For You, which gave it just a little bit of a darkness, a little bit of an edge that really fit the song. I think this is something that it could sound good, lyrical message aside. It could sound very good with just an acoustic guitar or piano, and then the main vocal melody, singing those lyrics or something beyond a second grade reading comprehension level. Yeah, I think it could sound okay. But what do you think of the performance? because I thought, it was pretty average, pretty middle of the road for the performance. Like the feel, I feel like there's some emotion in the singing, but there's something about the strain in his voice that makes it seem really over the top to me. But what did you think on that?
I didn't get over the top on that. I do agree with you. I guess I disagree with you on this point. Like, I like the performance. I didn't give it much higher than middle of the road, but just a little bit more. I think Brian Adams has a distinct and memorable voice. Um, I think
They
his
said that
vocal.
about me, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. No, he does a good job in this. His vocal delivery really sells the piece. So whereas I didn't think the composition was all that strong, I thought it was just very middle of the road. I thought the performance actually kind of sold it a little bit better. I did like you. You mentioned the dynamics. I do like the dynamics. I put them in here on performance, but they do a good job of breaking up the song. It is somewhat simplistic in construction. I think the rhyme scheme, like having multiple rhyme schemes, helps it break it up a little bit more. I think that the dynamics of the piece actually really break up the song pretty well. It breaks it into nice, tiny, little, neat little sections that you would want in a commercial song. And at this point, if you were to read the lyrics, you would kind of be like, if you were to look back on it and kind of say, what is he trying to say? If there's like a hidden message, that he's trying to tell the audience exactly what to do and how to feel. In certain sections, he'll be like, okay, I want you to hear the message I'm singing. So the rest of the band is going to play real softly at this point. And then now I want you to bask in the feeling of the piece. So we're going to get a little bit louder and we're going to have a guitar solo. It sounds like they're kind of just guiding the audience along to listen to it appropriately. And that's what I
Very,
got
very
out of it.
paint by numbers in that regard, wasn't it?
That's how I feel. Yeah. And the one last thing I had about that was that the solos are dynamic. There's a lot of empty space in there, though. And I thought it was appropriate for the piece, but it's just kind of not very interesting.
Okay.
How did you feel about the performance?
Yeah, as far as that performance goes, I rated it just a little bit above average because it is about average for a professional recording of the era. It's reminiscent. This song and the way it sounds, I think maybe it's dated a little bit by the drum sound. The '80s, early '90s, that drum sound. I think it's the way they compress the drums when they're recording them. It has a distinctive sound. So I think that dates it a little bit. This is maybe not as timeless, although if you read any of the YouTube comments, you might realize otherwise. But yeah, I didn't have too much to say about the performance. It was a solid performance. My issue, if anything, was the vocal strain. Now, a lot of times that can add to the human feel of a vocal delivery, and it can make it sound more emotional, especially when you strain up to the top of a singer's range. I don't know if we reached the top of Bryan Adams's range in this particular song. That's not the kind of strain that I'm talking about. I'm talking about it sounds like he's constipated. And I had literally nothing to say about the production. It sounded very, it was well mixed, well balanced. So it was a strong enough arrangement. You got that chorus several times. I guess I just said I had nothing to say about the production, and I said things about the production. That happens in a professional environment like this, doesn't it, Kev?
Oh yeah,
But did you have any notes on that?
just a couple. Yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was well coordinated. There's one moment that I really like where they break it up nicely. They highlight the piano right before the guitar solo at 2 minutes and 44 seconds, and I thought that was nice but standard. I mean, really, like you're highlighting one instrument and then going into another. It's well directed. The guitar riffs in the background ring through during the breaks in the vocals where he stops singing. You'll hear the guitar go off in the background, just a couple little hits, and it sounds nice. There's a dip in the song, which reminded me of the John Mulaney joke where he's like, November rain's over. No, it's not. But I thought that was funny.
I was hoping you would go for a "What's New Pussycat" John Mulaney joke. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's right. That's all I have for production. As far as I might jump into appeal,
Yeah.
if that's all right with you. I gave it I gave it the same score I would give a lot of the songs that I just feel kind of missed the mark for me personally.
Hmm.
About three quarters credit for emotion. Definitely emotion, definitely emotive vocals, but the message itself and the vocals for me, it's like he was trying to sell it to me, and I wasn't buying it. Back when I was younger, I listened to this song a lot. I love this song because it's from the soundtrack for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Kevin Costner is an absolute badass. I loved this movie when I was a little kid, and this was a huge hit and number one on the top 100 Billboard. So there's
Really,
no
I preferred Robin Hood Men in Tights
yeah, no, much better movie.
when I was a kid.
But yeah, there's no way to like untangle this song from memories of watching that movie. I think that's a good thing in this case because
Hmm.
without the movie and without that context, I think I wouldn't like it at all. It would just like it would have missed me if I didn't have that context. Repeat listenability, I gave it about a middle of the road score, and innovation as well, about the same.
So I thought about that, and I kind of went back and forth on my rating for innovation on this. I didn't think there was anything innovative about it. It's a song that was written in 45 minutes.
Damn it! You stole my thunder. I was going to tell you that I knew that.
So actually, fun. Here's a fun fact for you. Each of the three ballads that we're featuring was written in a very short amount of time.
The second one was
Uh,
40 minutes. I'm just going to steal it because I know that one.
Go
I
ahead.
didn't know the third one was a short song either.
Well, I think it was a little bit longer. I think on the third one, we'll go ahead and reveal that the second song we're going to talk about is Savage Garden's "I Knew I Loved You," and the third one is Adele's "Someone Like You."
The second one, the Savage Garden song, was written out of spite for the production for the
For the record label, right?
record company.
And Adele's version of "Someone Like," well, not her version of, she wrote it, or at least co-wrote. She started it while she was sick in bed with her acoustic guitar, and then she met up with the producer and wrote it over the course of like 24 hours.
Nice.
So I think the lesson there is memorable songs that have catchy hooks. When an artist tells you that it didn't take any time at all, they're either lying to make themselves sound more creative, or good ideas just stick that well. And I think each of these three is catchy in its own way. Now, I would say, just to wrap it up on the Bryan Adams song, I didn't think there was anything innovative about it because it was written in such a hurry for whatever the reason, and maybe it wasn't rushed. It just came together quickly. But yeah, nothing really innovative about it. So I effectively gave it zero credit for innovation, and for the emotion and repeat listenability, very much half credit for both of those. So I landed on a tune score of 6.0 out of 10 on this one, and I thought it would be best listened to when you found that special person whose existence will take precedence over yours for the rest of your days, but not a moment before.
I gave it about a 5.7 out of 10. Our scores were really close on this one.
Shocking.
I think it's no, I think it's and we were going for middle of the road when we were selecting songs. We are like, let's try to find a piece that we think would fit that middle of the road. And we were off a little bit, but we're pretty close. And there's nothing wrong with this song. I mean, he hit the top 100 Billboard for this song, and he has received many awards for this song. But just the fact that I mean, it's impressive that the song was written in 45 minutes. It's impressive that like you could be so good at songwriting that in 45 minutes you could write a song that's at least at its very base like a very standard song. I think that your goal should be to go above and beyond that, but it's still it's an impressive thing to be able to do that.
Well, they say the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven were written in 12 minutes, so barely longer than the song itself.
Well, they didn't even have to write. They didn't have to write the main guitar riff, so it saves some time.
that's that's true. That might be a good comparison episode, Spirit versus Stairway to Heaven. But I think others have probably already tread that ground before us. But that's Everything I Do, I Do It For You by Bryan Adams. I think this would be a good time to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with I Knew I Loved You by Savage Garden. This commercial break is brought to you by our sponsor, Don Francisco Dark Roast, the taste that keeps you coming back for amor. Oh, Jesus. Not terrible.
Not terrible.
That sounded more like Bela Lugosi than Don Francisco, though. Or Count Chocula. I'm definitely not going to leave. I'm definitely not going to leave that in.
No, that's brilliant. I need you to come up with a bunch of new no bits. Damn it.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back. Our next song that we've got for the review this evening is I Knew I Loved You by Savage Garden. This was a number one hit. I think it was released in 99, but it didn't reach number one until 2000, early 2000. And I believe I saw that it was the most played song on the radio of the 2000s decade. How about that?
They lost all the data for the preceding 9 years.
Maybe. So let's talk about Savage Garden's hit song that we've already revealed was written in a very short order and was done to spite the record company, as frankly a lot of good songs probably are. But Kev, why don't you take us through its composition?
Again, I gave it pretty much middle of the road scores for this one. As far as composition goes, it's very adequate. It doesn't stand out in any particular way for me. The lyrics, I think, are very decent in this song. I think the lyrics, maybe I could have given an extra point to. The cadence is on point. I really don't like the hook. I think that's why I gave it back to that middle score. Maybe I give it a point for having decent lyrics that actually like tell a story, pretty on point. But then that the hook really just doesn't get me, and so I detracted from that. There's one point in the song where some words are briefly kind of shoehorned to fit a line.
So I think that's a good point that we should probably talk about the lyrics. And we'll go back to the rest of the composition here in a moment. So I've got the lyrics in front of me. Maybe it's intuition, but some things you just don't question. Like in your eyes, I see my future in an instant. That sounds just a little bit shoehorned. And there it goes. I think I found my best friend. I know that it might sound more than a little crazy, but I believe. And that chorus that everyone knows. And I'll tell you, when I saw the title of this song, even though I had not heard it in well over a decade, I instantly heard the melody. So I'll talk more about composition and its ratings from me in a moment, but the melody got a near perfect score from me just because it was that memorable. Whether you like the hook or not, if it sinks its barbs into you that well and it lasts for that long, that's a good hook and that's a good melody. But that chorus is I knew I loved you before I met you. I think I dreamed you into life. I knew I loved you before I met you. I've been waiting all my life. And that chorus is repeated about 18 to 19 times, probably throughout the duration. Verse 2, there's just no rhyme or reason, only the sense of completion. And in your eyes, I see the missing pieces I'm searching for. I think I found my way home. I know that it might sound more than a little crazy, but I believe. And there's a weird bridge piece. A thousand angels dance around you. I'm complete now that I've found you.
I hated that.
Yeah, I didn't like the imagery necessarily. Maybe that's
It's poetic nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a saying like That seems insincere to me. Like you don't really mean that. You're just trying to sound pretty and make somebody feel like they're pretty.
So that was my main takeaway. You've stolen my thunder there. My main takeaway was everything about this track is highly emotionally manipulative. But now that we've looked into the lyrics, Kev, what do you think this song is about when you read it as a text?
Oh, I took it at face value. I this is all. I thought it was pretty well straightforward, just laid out the way it is. But I can't wait to hear this. Tell me
Okay.
what it's actually or about, or what you think it's about.
Okay, so I've got three theories on this.
Oh, good.
First is the face value theory. This is I found my soulmate, right?
Yep.
Okay, the second theory, and this would be a better segue into the next song, and I'll tell you why in a moment. My second theory is that it's about welcoming a new baby into the household. It's more of a lullaby. It certainly put me to sleep than it is a love song or a really strong ballad. Because there's nothing in here that's even remotely sexual. This is the Ken doll version of a love song, if anything. But every line, if you read it, this could be an ode to a newborn daughter or son. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it would be a little creepy to sing this to your kid.
Well, if you played it for your kid, yeah, it would be creepy. But the words themselves. And my third theory, and this is probably the most controversial, so keyboard warriors start limbering up those knuckles. My third theory is this: it's about a nocturnal emission.
God damn it, Cary.
It's about masturbation without masturbating. You know, I knew I loved you before I met you. He's talking about a dream. This is his imagination going wild while he's asleep and the release that followed. Counterpoint?
Oh. Nope, you nailed it. That's perfect. I think that's what it's about.
So so let's get back to doing what we actually do best. That's kind of a joke. I do think that it could be read that way, but that's not a serious interpretation of the lyrics, so don't at me. As far as the composition goes, I think again, going back to that very basic idea of just a simple arrangement, just a single acoustic guitar or piano with somebody singing over it. I think it could be a very pretty song. That melody itself is very pretty. The lyrics are much more literate than what we found in the previous, in the Bryan Adams song that we were talking about. The rhythm's decent. I didn't realize they were using drum samples or programmed drums as much. That's what it sounded like to me, but I didn't think that was as prevalent in pop music in the late '90s.
It wasn't.
And maybe I thought that with a name like Savage Garden, this would be more of a post grunge outfit. But I think not having listened to anything else by them, I think I've been duped, and they should just change their name to Garden because there's nothing savage about anything they do. I don't know,
Agreed.
but yeah, so fairly middling composition with the exception of that melody rates pretty highly up there. And I also this is something I found to be the case with Bryan Adams and found to be the case here too. I thought the singer's voice was annoying, and I get that's totally a matter of personal preference because anyone listening at home is probably going to think that my voice is annoying. So I come from a place of love on that. But the singer's carrying the burden of performative complexity, and he does so competently. Just kind of annoying to me. So again, fairly average performance scores. I didn't hear a lot of feel in the singer's voice. But Kev, what did you think of the performance?
I would say I differ on that a little bit. I think he's a beautiful. I think he has a beautiful voice. I think he's a beautiful vocalist. I'm just not sure about the overall sound of the piece. So I think that maybe it's a mistake to have him with the melody for this particular song, or however it's played. Maybe the instrumentation surrounding his voice. I don't know. Just something is off-putting about it. You said that you find it annoying. I find it annoying as well. I don't think he has a bad voice though. I think it's just the context in which he's singing. One of the things you noticed, the drums, the digital drums. I didn't notice that. What I noticed most was the MIDI keyboard sound that was really popular back when Doogie Howser MD was a show, which was 1989, 10 years before this song came out. But now it just sounds old. This is in the, I don't know for whatever reason, this is in the, what's the category? Adult contemporary is the musical category it finds itself in. It just sounds antiquated to me. It sounds like this is something like your mom would listen to be cool. She's like, I'm hip, I'm with it, I'm listening to this.
No
Um,
way, man. My mom was listening to Mambo Number Five.
nice, your mom's cool as shit. Um, yeah, so yeah, middle scores for performance. As far as production goes, there's this a very the one thing I didn't like was there's just a very standard key change to break up the song. That's it. They just sing the chorus, but now we're going to sing the chorus higher this time, and it's just kind of annoying. It does break up that you don't want to hear the chorus three times in a row, so it does break it up enough where you're like, okay, I'll listen to it like this. But it makes it sound interesting without actually having to do anything that's interesting. But middle of the road scores, I think I gave it less points on arrangement for that reason. How do
Mm.
you feel about it?
Similarly, now the arrangement for me was actually, I mean, I felt there was nothing outstanding about the mix. So that was exactly half credit and just ever so slightly higher on the arrangement. Although the point that I noticed about the overall arrangement and production was that towards the end, and I think it might have been around the time of the key change, there was a guitar solo in the left channel raising her hand, but the teacher never called on her. It just didn't materialize. Like I could hear it wanting to break out, but it didn't. And as far as the appeal of this one for me goes, I had mentioned that I had not heard this song in well over a decade. I hope it's at least twice that long before I have to hear it again. Very low on repeat listenability for me. I thought it broke zero new ground and a little lower than average emotion, despite the literacy of the lyrics and the possible multiple ways that it could be interpreted. Especially now that we know the story, that it was just sort of out of spite for the record label. Uh, you know, I feel like you can love someone at first sight. It's a bad idea, but you can do it. But you cannot love someone before you meet them. Unless this is about your child that you've finally given birth to and met. That makes a little more sense. But then, why would you coo your vocals so seductively? To your point, Kev, about not much of a lullaby in its current state. Yeah, I actually mentioned because the text is open to interpretation, so too is my best listened to. I think it's best listened to when you're welcoming a new addition to the family. Take that how you will.
Nice, Cary.
How did it appeal to you?
As far as appeal goes, very similar scores to the last song. About three quarters of the range for emotion. It didn't hit me. I could hear it in there. I could hear the emotive vocals, but it just the message kind of sailed past me. Innovation didn't break any new ground. Gave it middle of the road score. Repeat listenability for me, this one's really low. But I'm not the key demographic here. They're not going after me when they wrote this song. They didn't have me in
Why?
mind when
Because you're not an adult, or because you're not contemporary?
they because I'm not old and I'm not tone deaf. No, I don't know. It's not a bad song. It just kind of missed the mark, I guess. For me, it just felt strange and commercial and insincere. And again, it was written in like 40 minutes. I think it's an impressive task that like both of these artists were able to write a song, pretty much to completion in that short amount of time, but they didn't spend that extra time and effort to make this not just a standard track, but an amazing track. So I ended up giving it an exact 5 out of 10 on this one for the overall tune score.
Yep, and I think mine overall was 5.6 out of 10.
Yeah.
The melody, the credit I gave the melody, I think boosted it up quite a bit there. And I think as a brief segue into our next song review, the reason why I think I was probably interpreting the message on I Knew I Loved You as being potentially about welcoming a new baby into the world was because for the next song, Adele's Someone Like You, I noticed that it was produced by Dan Wilson, and he was the singer and songwriter of Semisonic, who released a song called Closing Time
Ugh.
about a year before this Savage Garden song came out. And Closing Time was also, open to interpretation. You could take it at face value, but was also potentially about welcoming a new addition into the family in that way. So we'll
Where
get into some Dan Wilson production, even though we're not going to cover the Semisonic song.
now we have to, because I did not hear that at all when I heard that song.
You didn't hear what?
The welcoming a new member into the family. I did not get that message at all.
Oh gosh.
I think you might be
Well,
right.
comment. Leave us a comment below if you think that Closing Time is about growing up and being fruitful and multiplying, or if it's just about figuring out which ugly person you're going to take home from the bar. At any rate, we'll be back after this short break. For our final song review tonight, we've got Someone Like You by Adele. Now, this one, I'll start off on the composition of this one, if you don't mind, Kev.
Shoot.
All right. So, for me, it's middle of the score again, except where it's not. And I gave this high praise on both the melody and the lyrics. I thought they really shine on this track because it's hard for anything else to shine because it's just piano and vocals. It's a mostly positive message in the lyrics, although I would rather just send a Christmas card saying, I hope you're well, than to show up uninvited, as she says in the lyrics there. Different sections use unique chord progressions. There's some slash chords being played in there, so that boosts the harmony just a little bit. It gives it a little extra spice. But overall, I thought it was a solid composition. Like I always say, a solid composition should be able to stand on its own when it's just a single instrument like a piano or an acoustic guitar and a vocal on top of it. And that's pretty much what you've got here. Vocals were doubled in a couple of sections just to give them a little bit more breadth and depth, but that's basically what you've got here. So I'd say the composition stands pretty well on its own. But Kev, what did you think?
Very similar scores, I would say. As far as melody and lyrics, I rated it pretty highly. Rhythm and harmony, not so much. There was harmony there, again, with those doubled vocals, but it was just kind of there. It was present. So it was acceptable, as adequate. Some of the, if I broke down I did a deep dive into the lyrics a little bit. Some of the things that stood out to me, there's a line, don't forget me, I beg. I remember you said, but I beg and I remember I put kind of close together with the vocal cadence. And so I've always heard it, I bet I remember you said, which always to me sounded stupid or ineloquent, and really stood out to me as being out of place in this song because for the most part, the lyrics I thought were pretty good. It's just because of that closeness together that I misheard the lyrics and I misunderstood the message. So I would have revisited that section to see if I could move the things around or rearrange something so that it stood out more. Both those different lines. There's a lot of starts and stops on particular words in the lines throughout. I think that has more to do with the vocal delivery than anything else. But that one in particular stood out, and none of the others really stood out in a bad way. Just kind of it was very fitting. That one in particular was too close to the end of a stanza, right next to that hook. So I would have tried to separate the two if I could have. I'm not a big fan of the hook. You're not wrong. Just like you talked about the last song we reviewed, it's memorable, so it does a good job. It's a hook. It does what it's supposed to. But to me, there's a lot of focus on that line, so I want it to be something more, I don't know, insightful, I would say. And just the way it's phrased to me sounds a little less than that. So I wish we could have revisited that, but I didn't write the song, so not my choice to make. And maybe that's another thing, is maybe that's what the person really said. Maybe that's a direct quote and you added it in the song, in which case you wouldn't want to change it. You pointed out that I hate to turn up out of the blue uninvited, but I couldn't stay, I couldn't fight it. I really like that line. I can feel the impulsiveness for the narrator. From their viewpoint, this is uncontrollable. So emotionally, this makes perfect sense, but from a logical perspective, this is a real dick move. I would say you could read that first part as sarcasm, in which case it could be just a justification for a selfish or inappropriate behavior. Just, oh, I hate to turn up out of the blue, but I couldn't stay away. I couldn't fight it, justifying that you did something that was inappropriate and was out of place. So yeah, that's how I felt about the composition. But I do like the lyrics. I think they're okay. I think that the melody stands out. The vocal melody stands out particularly. As far as performance goes, I have no notes. Like, Adele's a beautiful vocalist. There's some appropriate dynamic volume changes. I gave it full marks across the board for performance. How did you feel about her performance on this one?
Very nearly the same. I think the only thing that missed full marks was accuracy for me. And it's because of a little bit of that vocal delivery and exactly what you mentioned, being able to tell the word beg from bet when you're just listening to it without reading the lyrics as a text. Tiny, tiny bits of slurring of words, but otherwise really high marks. And as far as the production goes, I mentioned this was produced and co-written by Dan Wilson, formerly of Semisonic. I thought that it was a really bold choice to release a song with just piano and vocals. Probably the right choice given the mood of the song and its eventual chart-smashing success. So I won't question the wisdom of Dan Wilson on that one. So nearly full marks on the arrangement as well, as far as how the song was structured, not just instrumentally, but you know having a verse here and a chorus here and a bridge there, that kind of thing. I thought it was really strong. How'd you feel about the production?
Similar, I would say. I didn't give it full credit, but I gave it middle of the road scores. I'm not sure exactly if it's just because there's not much to do here. I think there was not much work to do. There's just, you've got, what are your directions? Make sure you can still hear the piano. Like, that's pretty much it. Like, again, the performance is amazing. It's beautiful, but it's very simple in construction. I think that it lends well to the song to have just the vocals and the piano, because it kind of feels lonely. And I think that's the point of the song. So I thought that that was an excellent choice. As far as appeal goes, this one got higher credit than some of the other songs we listened to, and most songs we listen to, really. The song itself is beautiful. It's amazing. The emotion is well delivered. Innovation, I gave it a 3 out of 4. Sorry, a 0.3 out of point 4. Just an extra little point, just because I think that there was a lot of work put into this song, even if it was over a 24-hour period. That's notably impressive that you could write a song in that quick turnaround and to have it be this good. This is pretty decent compared to the other two that we reviewed today. For me, repeat listenability is high on this one, 14 out of 1.4 out of 1.6. I thought it was well delivered. I always don't like, I nitpick lyrics and stuff, but that doesn't mean I don't like the song as a whole. I just wish that the lyrics maybe were a tad more clear. And it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, you know, listen to it enough, you're going to nitpick little things out of there. But overall, by itself, the song is excellent.
Yeah, I would totally agree, and I think as far as the innovation, I only gave half credit, and really it's just for the ballsy move of releasing a song out into the world that featured only piano and vocals, and it was 3/4 of the way for me on emotion and repeat listenability. Essentially, I feel it. If it comes on my Spotify playlist or something, I'm not necessarily going to skip it, but I also probably wouldn't seek it out. The fact is, I seldom enjoy such a sparse arrangement as a final product. As a demo, that's fine. But Adele's voice and the message of finally moving on without malice make this particular track enjoyable or listenable. And I said it would be best listened to when you're creeping around your ex's backyard so you can confront him once and for all and tell him you're happy that he's moved on.
Very, very fitting. I like it.
And my tune score on this one was a 7.5 out of 10. Probably the highest one I've given so far.
Maybe. Mine was 7.5. We were really close on this one.
But we've got a lot more songs to cover at some point in the future. But I think to wrap up this episode, Kevin, the question that's on everybody's mind is what is the best pop ballad of the last 30 or so years? What do you
Oh,
think?
that's an excellent question. I don't know. Do you have an answer already picked out in your mind? Give me a minute to think about that.
Yeah, it's Wicked Game by Chris Isaac,
Oh, nice. That's an excellent choice.
which is a minor key. Well, it's in the Dorian mode. Uh, that has a much sadder feel and therefore a lot more appeal for me. Maybe we'll actually sit down and give that one a tune score at some point in the future. But that one has more appeal for me. So if you're looking to get a high tune score out of Cary, you should probably write in a minor mode, one of the minor modes. Compared to all three of these that we reviewed today, they were all in major keys, featuring some minor tonalities at various points, but they're ballads, and they were a little bit happier sounding than maybe what old Carrie Nightingale would usually go for.
What was the time frame for the question, your query there?
I said about 30 or so years.
30 or so
And
years?
Wicked Game was released in '89, but didn't become a hit until I want to say 1990 or maybe after.
Yeah.
And I was just a little kid then, so I didn't even know about it until, geez, probably college.
Yeah. November Rain's still up there, I think. I don't know if it's the number one, but it's the most memorable. So it stands out for me as probably one of the best. There's a lot going on there. Maybe we could review both of those. That'd be
Well, you really put the emphasis on or so in the 30 or so years.
fun. There's a Before we sign off, there's a really funny quote from a movie that I like. You ever see the movie Club Dread? It's
No.
it's a Broken Lizard film. You know, the guys who did Super Troopers, and
Yes.
Bill Paxton is in the movie, and he does an excellent job. So how bad could it be, right? Bill Paxton's in it, and he plays a Jimmy Buffett character, like a singer songwriter. He writes kind of cheesy music, and somebody's picking apart the lyrics to one of his songs, and they're making fun of him for it. And his response is, "Oh, I'm sorry. How many gold records do you have?" I thought it was very poignant for what we were doing, kind of tearing apart these top 100, top of the list Billboard hits, um, kind of tearing them apart. It's kind of funny. They obviously know what
Exactly.
they're
Although I'm sure that Adele and Bryan Adams and Savage Garden, they will all value our feedback.
doing.
I can't even say that with a straight face. But I know I've certainly had fun listening to these. I'll probably never listen to two out of three of them again if given the choice.
Probably.
As always, we are enriched for having listened to music that maybe is outside of our wheelhouse. So I know that's true for me. Kevin, I'll speak for you and say that you're better off for having listened to these as well, as we always are. And this is a fun exercise for us to do. And we really hope that you, as the audience, get that same thing. So we want to thank you for tuning in and wish you a great day. Take care.